Thanks for tuning into this tutorial on using the Veracross API with Filemaker Pro. My name is Dawson. I'm the Veracross point person at the American School in London and a long-term Filemaker Pro user. I think Filemaker is a pretty great program. It's reasonably easy to use and yet capable of some pretty complex functionality. It really is a Swiss Army knife database tool. It has really good options that make it easy to utilize the API and then most importantly to make use of the data once you have it. I'm guessing if you're watching this you saw me presenting at the 2018 Veracross Connect conference. I wanted to make this presentation very practical, so I'll be starting with a blank FileMaker file and I'll show you how to pull data from the API, how to automate the updating of the data, and how to start creating your own reports and processes. I've posted this here, so if there were any details you missed during the presentation you can watch it again. I'll give you my email address at the end, so if you have any further questions you'll be able to get in touch. Before opening FileMaker Pro, let's take a quick look at the URL that's used to query the API. If you do want to check that you have the syntax correct, you can put the URL in a browser, and if it is correct you'll get a set of data returned. I've broken the URL into separate lines to make it easier to read. As you can see from the first line, this is a secure connection. The second line contains the username and password separated by a colon. To the left of the colon is the username, and to the right the password. You'll need to get your own username and password from your account manager. I've shortened this password to make it easier to read, so don't try it at home because it won't actually work. The third line is the API of the server. Moving down to the next line, you'll see two values separated by forward slashes. The first defines the name of your school, and again you'll need to get the exact details of what to put here from your account manager. For this demo I'm using the Veracross demo database, so the name is vcdemo_client. The second value on this line specifies the version of the API that's being used. As you can see, the current version is number 2. Line 5 specifies two things: what API stream you are calling, in this case the student stream, and then how the data is returned, as XML in this case. So the final line contains two parameters separated by an ampersand. In version 2 of the API, Veracross introduced a pagination feature that delivers the data in blocks of 100 records. This made utilizing the API difficult when using FileMaker, so they added the count parameter, and this allows you to deliver the data in much larger blocks of data. Count equals 100,000 means that for all the streams that I use, I get the complete set of data in one call. As we saw earlier, this URL is querying students. The option 2 parameter means that I only pull in active students. Program students and future students are filtered out. There are different options for filters depending on the stream that you're querying. You can review these in the Veracross API documentation, which is very comprehensive. So I want to get into the actual demo now. So the first thing to do is to launch FileMaker. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to FileMaker Pro Advanced and open it up. So what I'm going to do is start a new file because I'm going to start with a blank file. So I'm going to have a new solution and I'm going to save this to my desktop. I'll call it VC API demo. So as you can see, it's opened up a blank file. I'm going to just take off all the formatting. Go into browse mode. So this is a brand new file. There's if we look here in the database setup, it's actually made a default table. I'm going to actually delete that. So we're starting here with no tables. It's really a brand new empty file. And I first of all want to show you how you how you actually import the API in the simplest possible way. So I've pre-saved my URLs just because typing them can be a little fiddly, and I don't want to show you me getting it wrong multiple times. So I'm just copying and pasting the first URL. So you go to, what we're doing is an import here. So under the file menu there's an import records option, and one of the sub options is XML data source. So I'm going to open that, and you'll see here it's asking for either a file or an HTTP request, so a URL, and that's what I'm going to paste my URL in here. Now there's one other step that you need to do. You need to associate a style sheet with when you're doing an XML import. This actually requires a file. The file is available in the when you install the application, the Filemaker application. The little file that you need is in one of the folders. It's called msdso underscore elem.xslt, as you can see. So I'm going to navigate to that and then continue. And what you'll see here is it's opened this import field mapping window, and to the right hand side is now a list of names. If we click on this arrow, you'll actually see some data. So what you're seeing here is actually the contents of the API, and these are the field names within the API. So what we now need to do is to bring that into a table in FileMaker. So currently the table doesn't exist. So I'm going to go New Table. So what this is going to do is going to create a table, and what FileMaker is doing is seeing all the fields in the API and creating equivalent fields in the new table. And it's naming them, and it's naming them with exactly the same formatting that are in the table, so that which is actually very useful. So you can see here the import action is add new records, and I'm going to hit import, and you'll see the import summary. It's added 100 records, no errors, and it's created a table. So the table's been named by default XML from HTTP, not particularly useful, so I'm going to rename that table. So I go into the database management, tables, and I can rename the table here, and I'm going to call this students because I've imported the students API stream. Hit OK, and then I'm going to change the view. So I'm going to change, I'm currently in a detail view. I'm going to change it to a table just to make it easier to read. And here you can see it's a table of all the data that's been pulled through the API. There are 100 records, and these are all the fields that Veracross makes available through this stream. So just to continue the demo, I'm going to very quickly import the other the other three streams, sorry. So I've done students. I'm going to do exactly the same process, import records, XML data source. This is now classes. I'm going to navigate to my style sheet. I'm going to continue. So as you can see, by default it's trying to put it in the current table which is students. I don't want that. I want to create a new table. So again, I go new table. Again, it's creating a new table with equivalent fields to what it has found in the API. I'm going to hit import there. I'm going to rename this time to classes. Okay. Take the third one. I'm just, for the purposes of this test, I'm bringing in 4 streams of data. Import records again, XML. Now we're bringing in enrollment records. New, new table, import. So obviously I know I'm going quite fast, but you can always play this at half speed if you wish to slow this down. Enrollment, change. Okay, and I'm going to do the final one, which is faculty and staff. So this is essentially teachers. New table. So I'm going to rename the final table. So now we have 4 tables of information: students, classes, enrollment, and teachers. And you'll see also that FileMaker has created equivalent layouts to display the information for each of these tables. I'm just changing the view. So as you can see now, we've got these 4 sets of data. If we go back into the managed database, you'll also see that on the relationship graph, I'm going to get rid of this one. On the relationship graph, there are 4 what are called table occurrences that are placed on the interface. These are a visual representation of the tables that have been placed in the system, and we'll get back to how you use these a bit later. So far we've brought in some data. We've also written a script to automatically update the data. The final thing is, what will you do with this once you have it? There are so many things that you can do with FileMaker and do that utilizes the data that you've brought in through the API. The first thing that I really built once we had Veracross was a file to produce reports, so it was producing various lists, things that people were used to having prior to Veracross. So these were labels, class lists, bus lists, many of these sort of things. As time passed, we then developed systems to cover functionality that Veracross didn't. So we have systems that manage our SLD program, professional development program, things like purchase orders, a hardware database, music instruments database. These all involve people, and so they all utilize data that originates from Veracross through the API, but then I'm able to build functionality on top of that. I'm also able to use FileMaker to feed satellite systems like catering, security, library, etc. So you can do a lot of things with the data. FileMaker's a relational database. We've brought in 4 separate tables, and the next step would be to build relationships between them. I'm going to very quickly demonstrate how easy that is by using this demo. I'm going to go into the database manager, and here on this relational graph we have the tables that we've brought in. We've got 4 tables. I'm going to build a report that is essentially a class list. So the core of the report is going to be the enrollment records. So what I need to do is, as you can see in the enrollment records, it actually doesn't have that much data. It has the enrollment primary key, the class field key, and the student field key, and a few other pieces of information. So in order to make this meaningful, I need to, for instance, connect to get the name of the class here. So what I do is connect the enrollment table and the class table, and I just simply do that by clicking on the class field key here and dragging it over to the class ID here. So now I've made a connection between these 2 tables based on the class field key. I'm going to do the same with students. So I want to take the student's ID number and connect it to the student table through that ID. So as you can see, student field key, student primary key. And finally, I'm going to want to include the name of the teacher on my report. So I'm going to open this up. And I'm going to take the teacher field key and connect it to the person field key in the teacher table. So very quickly I've established relationships between my 4 tables. You can have many of these, and you can add further what is called table occurrences to this graph. They can actually get pretty complex, and I might very quickly show you a real life relationship graph just to show you how complicated they can get. I'll maybe show you that at the end. But now I've made these connections, I'm going to build a quick report. I'm going to create a new layout for my report. And I'm going to base it on the enrollment records. Let's just remove any formatting. So here in the body of my report, this will show me all the records from the main table, which in this case I've defined in the layout as show records from enrollment. So if I add a field to this and just put the enrollment ID just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to go into browse mode. So this is showing me one value. If I go into preview mode, so I preview the report, which I can do here, there is the ID numbers going onto multiple pages of all the enrollment records. Just going to close this up a bit so it's showing more information. So there's all my ID numbers, enrollment ID numbers. So the next thing I want to do is bring the name of the students in here. So as you remember, we made here a relationship between the enrollment table and the student table based on the ID. I can add the related field to this report by adding it from the student table, and here we can put in their first name and their last name. So there's the first name and last name of the student, and if we just preview that, there is the first name and the last name of each student. So now we've got a list of enrolled students, but what we want to do is make this a class list. So I'm going to add another part to my report, and this is going to be a sub-summary. So this is going to be a sub-summary from the classes table when it's sorted by the name of the class. I'm going to add the class field here. So there's the name of the class. Go into preview mode. And there we have now the class, and you can see it's sub-summarized. I'm going to highlight this to make it easier to see. Just give this a little color. So there you can see each class, and then underneath it the name of the students within the class. Another thing I might do at this point is add one more summary to do a page break so that each class appears on its own page. There are different ways of doing this. I like to do it like this, sub-summary, exactly the same as before based on the class. But I'm going to set it below, and I'm going to click here and say page break after each occurrence. So now, as you can see here, I've got a separate page for each class. Perhaps I want to put the teacher's name on here. Maybe put the first name on as well. So there's the teacher. Now obviously I could spend some time and neaten this up. I might want to put a heading on it. And so on. I could put some page numbers, I could put a date on it. But this is just a very quick demonstration on how to relate some data and then produce a meaningful result. So just as a final thing to show you, here's an actual real-world file. So this is a database that we use that utilizes the API. So I'm going to close this in the background. This one I built soon after we got Veracross. As you can see, there's interfaces which allow you to pull up various reports. So here, for instance, these are homeroom lists, class lists. You might want a list of pictures, perhaps some labels. So obviously all the buttons that and all these choices that I'm making, there are scripts behind all this that make it easy for people to use. You can see we've got lower school lists, middle school lists. There's placement data. This is a way of recording information regarding the student's placement. There's really many things here. I did say I'd show you the relationship graph. We had a very simple one with the demo. This is a real one. This might look a bit scary, but that's how complex a real system can get in terms of relationship. You can see there's multiple relationships built between multiple tables. All these are utilized to produce the various reports and processes that we use this for. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you enjoyed the live demo, and this gives you a chance to look back at what was talked about and perhaps get some ideas. I'm going to put my email address here, and if you'd like to contact me, please feel free. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. Please do get in touch if you have any questions. My email address is danny_Dawson@asl.org. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.